Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 2026 State of the YAYA Report.
We work for Mojo Ad, a full-service student-led agency based in the Missouri School of Journalism. We've worked with clients like Bath & Body Works, Sour Patch Kids, and NASA. We focus on the youth and young adult demographic of 18 to 24-year-olds, otherwise known as YAYAs, a term coined by Mojo Ad.
This life stage makes up more than 31 million consumers in the United States and is often overlooked by marketers. They're about to decide whether to stick with the brands they've used their entire lives or split off in another direction.
Nobody knows these consumers quite like we do because we are these consumers. As members of this elusive demographic, we serve as liaisons between YAYAs and those seeking to reach them. If marketers fail to connect with this demographic, they could lose them forever.
Over the next 30 minutes, you'll hear the three Mojo Ad teams dive deep into these three questions. What is the new American dream?
What is true knowledge?
And what is authenticity?
This year's State of the YAYA report was created using secondary research from nearly 200 unique academic and industry sources.
We then created a 52-question survey for our primary quantitative data with 718 total respondents. Our participants came from a nationally representative sample of YAYA consumers, consistent with U.S. Census demographics.
We also conducted 18 hours of primary qualitative research with 9 focus groups and 15 pair depth interviews, resulting in a total of 60 participants from across the country. We cannot wait to share these exciting findings with you shortly, but before we do, in the spirit of being good hosts, let us first introduce ourselves.
We are Team Mirage, and over the past semester, we've been busy discerning the truth hidden behind the illusion, investigating a contentious concept at the heart of America's 250th anniversary, the evolution of the American dream.
The traditional American dream used to promise upward mobility through hard work, allowing for wealth, home ownership, and having an overall safe and secure life.
However, when YAYAs think about the American dream, they're often left with more questions than answers.
Can I really just pull myself up by the bootstraps?
Is the white picket fence, marriage, and 2 kids truly fulfilling?
For centuries, the American dream has been our North Star. It's a broad, beautiful vision of success that defines who we are as a people. We want to believe the dream is still alive, waiting for us to claim it.
But is the jackpot just out of reach? To YAYAs, the traditional dream has shifted from a sure thing to a desperate roll of the dice. It's a risky bet on an unpredictable future. The American dream is no longer a promise. It's a wager.
YAYAs are playing a different game. They hedge their bets on the American dream, believing the traditional dream is now obsolete.
At the same time, they're refusing to gamble everything on a version of success that doesn't guarantee their own happiness. One YAYA said, "There's a role written for me in the American dream, but it is not the one I want."
And that feeling isn't isolated. We saw it almost immediately in our data. When forced to choose, YAYAs consistently reject traditional markers of success in favor of more flexible, fulfillment-driven paths.
For example, YAYAs are rethinking some of these traditional priorities, favoring flexible schedules over a rigid 9-to-5, chosen family over marriage and children, and passion-driven work over a high-status salary. It's not about chasing that white picket fence. It's more about choosing what actually feels meaningful to them.
There are clear reasons why YAYAs feel this way. We've grown up in a period of constant instability. From a financial crisis to a global pandemic during formative years, only to now enter a housing market where first-time buyers have dropped to historic lows.
The rules and standards to achieve traditional success are now relics of a different era, with 44% of YAYAs believing the American dream was written for someone else.
One YAYA said, "It used to be easier for our parents to buy a house, have a stable living situation, and a stable job."
A combined 67% of YAYAs see the dream in a negative light, a rare win that requires more luck than effort, a goal where the rules change as they get closer, and a game they are no longer interested in playing.
And that belief runs deep, as over a third believe that achieving the American dream is more about luck than skill. And for some, it goes even deeper, with 27% believing that the best strategy isn't effort at all, but being born into the right family.
One YAYA said, "It's an impossible standard that makes you feel like a failure if you don't reach it. Because for YAYAs, success doesn't feel entirely in their control anymore. Instead of believing that success comes purely from hard work, they see it as something shaped by timing, access, and who you know."
In fact, only 20% believe that working harder and smarter than everyone else is the best way to win. As one YAYA said it, external factors like luck, Networking and your zip code play a huge role. AI parsing of resumes means if you don't have certain keywords, you aren't even seen.
For others, it's a moving target, a goal where the rules keep shifting as they get closer. Or worse, a game they've already checked out of, no longer worth playing.
However, Yayas don't shy away from a challenge. In fact, only 28% say they feel behind in the game, which suggests that for many, falling behind isn't the right frame at all.
Yayas are not behind, and they certainly aren't lazy either. Because the game was one they had to play, they became strategic to keep moving forward.
Our generation hops around to get pay raises every couple of years. If you don't learn and you don't earn, it's time to go.
And instead of treating social media as part of the game, Yayas are reclaiming it as something personal. They no longer want social media to define who they are or what they're becoming. In fact, most Yayas do not view social media as something they need to leverage to move forward.
Only 13% see their online presence as an investment in future opportunities, and just 7% believe they'd fall behind if they didn't post their wins on social media. Unlike previous generations in the digital space, Yayas are pulling away from the expectation to constantly post a version of success online.
And it's not just a reluctance to post about career success, it's about perception too. In fact, our research indicates social media may be losing its edge. Only 10% say they post as a way to signal to others that they're on the right track.
As one Yaya put it, I care too much about my personal privacy that I could never be someone like an influencer online.
Because to them, that lifestyle isn't the goal, it's the exception. I don't think I'd want to live like a Barbie doll influencer. I would be scared of what that would do to my values.
And 83% say their ultimate win is a life that feels real, with their successes kept mostly private. At the core of it all, Yayas are chasing fulfillment over visibility.
Social media is low priority and low risk. Only 5% say they'd feel anxious about losing their competitive edge if they deleted it altogether.
So while it's often assumed that visibility leads to opportunity, Yayas aren't buying into that game. For them, privacy is a strategy, one of the few things they can fully control.
And that same preference for control extends beyond social media. Yayas hedge their bets in real lives too, choosing paths like living with friends or roommates and working hybrid or remote roles rather than traditional setups.
71% say living with family or roommates is a strategic choice, not a failure.
And 62% believe a hybrid or remote role gives them the freedom to build a life outside of the office.
The chips keep falling, and when the game feels out of their control, Yayas adjust how they engage with it rather than trying to keep up with every move.
Yayas turn to what they can manage, their health, mindset, and overall well-being. As one Yaya put it, if I had my mental health sorted out, I'd feel better about starting a family. I feel supported by my friends, but not by the world.
They face pressure to be constantly productive, enduring the threat of burnout, hoping that the pursuit of success is worth that risk.
We found that a third of Yayas feel pressure to perform a busy life, even when they're burnt out. But when the burnout hits, Yayas get strategic with grounding techniques to keep them in the game. In fact, 93% of Yayas incorporate these strategies into their daily lives. They protect their peace, romanticize their life, practice the let them theory, and embrace slow living.
That mindset reflects a broader reality. 40% say if their health slips, everything else becomes harder to keep up with. And only 21% of respondents would ignore health issues because other monetary obligations feel more urgent.
And for Yayas, this isn't just about discipline. It's about grounding themselves. It's choosing to take care of their health now instead of waiting for a future where they finally have the time.
And that urgency comes from a place close to home. Many Yayas grew up watching their parents chase the traditional American dream, often at the expense of their own experiences.
So we are choosing to do it differently. Instead of sacrificing ourselves for success, we're being more intentional about how we show up, recognizing that our health is one of the few things that we can actually control.
For Yayas, staying grounded is how they stay in the game. One such Yaya said, "The American dream kind of symbolizes that there's a non-zero chance that you can accomplish anything. It's always in the air, and it's always possible."
Now, the goal isn't to reject traditional success entirely, but to pursue it just enough to find a place where they can eventually slow down and prioritize life over work.
But what does personal fulfillment look like to Yayas? Is it travel, pay time off, freedom, or the ability to seek out experiences on their own terms?
Just over half see a job simply as a tool to fund the life I actually care about, while 64% say it's more important to be able to live a life not defined by traditional milestones.
One Yaya said, "I'm chasing the dream of not having to run away from the nightmare anymore."
Once Yayas have found their safety net, they fold. This is where fulfillment really shifts.
In fact, 59% say that if they suddenly had total financial security, the first move they would make would be to seek out those experiences that they've had to put on hold.
And if given a completely empty schedule, 45% say they would use that time to remember who I am when I'm not being productive, while only 3% say they would feel lost or restless without obligations.
But that freedom isn't entirely comfortable. 32% say they would still feel guilty if they weren't using free time to improve their status or income.
It's clear that Yayas are still rooted in hustle culture. They crave time for experiences, but are conditioned to fear what happens when there's too much of it.
But the traditional markers of the American dream haven't disappeared. They've just been reframed. Only 18% see settling down as a risk to personal freedom. So fulfillment isn't one size fits all.
For some, it's building an ordinary life, settling down and starting a family, especially since the majority of Yayas disagree that an ordinary life is no longer enough because of what they see online. For others, it's traveling the world, building their fitness, and even taking on new hobbies. But for most, it's about having the choice.
The new American dream isn't constant striving. It's reaching stability, then coasting into a life centered on personal experience, identity, and meaning beyond tradition.
Yayas are rewriting their version of the American dream to fit with the reality that it is no longer a guaranteed win or even a fair game. It's a wager with shifting rules, unpredictable odds, and a payout that doesn't always feel worth the risk. But Yayas aren't walking away.
They're remaining at the table to stay afloat and protect what they can control.
Most importantly, they're redefining what winning actually looks like.
Their ultimate prize isn't status, visibility, or wealth. It's stability, peace of mind, and the freedom to live a life that feels real and secure on their terms.
The new American dream is not about hitting the jackpot.
It's about when to fold and walk away with something that actually feels like a win.
Are Yayas all in?
Is this merely a coping mechanism?
Is it a way to survive the wager?
The truth isn't hidden. It's something they're still discovering.
And hope keeps Yayas rolling the dice.
Thank you for listening to Team Mirage dive deep into the new American dream. Next, we'll hand it off to Team Parallax with What is True Knowledge?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And thank you to Team Mirage for those insights. Now, allow us to introduce ourselves. We are Team Parallax.
Tasked with researching Yayas, we dove into the question, what is true knowledge?
Because for many Yayas, the role and definition of true knowledge has become increasingly bleak. To older generations, AI has eradicated the need for Yayas to learn for themselves.
Adding insult to injury, formal education's perceptions have taken a fall, and the internet sea of misinformation grows faster with each passing day. This left us wondering, how do Yayas interact with the mere idea of knowledge?
And what we found is that Yayas no longer simply receive knowledge. They navigate it, question it, and they build it for themselves.
The path to true knowledge has shifted from few formal institutions to a rugged, uncharted journey. And this journey is what we call the learner's odyssey. It's not a simple path that takes Yayas from point A to point B, but rather the learner's odyssey is a lifetime commitment to learning, a commitment that will bleed into every single aspect of their lives and demand that they abandon the idea of an end destination.
But what does this actually look like? The learner's odyssey takes Yayas through dimensions of knowledge beyond what young adults have known before. Worlds they are the first humans to set foot on, forced to find a way forward with no instruction.
But what is the learner's odyssey? Does it have an end destination? Does it follow a path? How do Yayas even define true knowledge?
Their definitions vary, but the most common answer being something proven with evidence and logic, with 40% adhering to this idea.
And most importantly, how does one really obtain knowledge?
For decades, the journey was simple. Sit in a stale classroom under harsh fluorescent lighting while years of textbooks and lecture halls offered a monotonous gateway to knowledge. Society began to worship higher education, and Americans bowed before the diploma.
But information broke out of the schoolrooms and fled libraries. A symphony of ones and zeros connected the world, and at last, young adults had a new teacher, the internet.
Countless hours spent flipping through encyclopedias turned into seconds typing on a keyboard.
And Yayas grew up with information more accessible than ever. However, they remain surrounded by thousands of doors only opened by a college degree.
But what awaits beyond those doors? And what do they have to gain on the path to formal education? And does another dimension of learning exist beyond the diploma?
The journey towards knowledge grows more complex every day, but it's unavoidable. The learner's odyssey has already begun.
Many Yayas begin on the planet of academia. They arrive with high spirits only to confront a realization.
Their college education will not become the pinnacle of their learning. Crowded lecture halls and cold libraries will fade into a hazy atmosphere of institutional white noise.
On academia, they sense they're not alone. 63% no longer believe a college degree is the best path to knowledge.
Yayas sit distracted in lectures, not out of boredom, but because their attention is tuned to a different broadcast of digital self-sourcing and trial and error. Yayas haven't dropped out, they've tuned out.
Once they finally step beyond academia's orbit, a sobering truth follows. Only 23% of Yayas with a bachelor's degree believe they learn their most useful skills in college.
Now, we know knowledge isn't only in the classroom. When Yayas venture out, they discover that academia's landscape offers opportunities to lead peers and take on unexpected challenges. Through our research, we found that Yayas actually learn more from the college experience than the actual degree itself.
One Yaya confirmed this, saying, "I have learned the skills that I will need to apply outside of my degree. My skills come from my job, my volunteer work, and my leadership positions on and off campus."
After venturing through academia, Yayas broaden their gaze toward the planet of tech. They arrive ready to broaden their minds, but quickly become hindered by constant digital noise.
The internet's unlimited information promised empowerment. Instead, the noise has deafened them. As a result, 48% of Yayas view digital smarts as the most important form of intelligence for success.
Yayas do not blindly trust information they receive when they scroll and have begun to vigilantly seek information for themselves. As a result, 71% trust information they search for more than information they simply receive on social media.
As smog conceals their vision, they devote themselves to building the human filter. In an era of digital clutter, Yayas transition from passive recipients to active evaluators of knowledge.
For this reason, Yayas now consider the most important skill for being considered knowledgeable in today's world as being able to evaluate whether or not information is true.
Ownership enables trust. This is what protects them from the embarrassment of spreading misinformation.
With the rise of AI, 43% say even clear explanations from AI still need questioning.
One Yaya said, "I get AI videos on my Reels every day, and I feel like I'm literally inspecting every other video to see if it's AI before I can laugh at it."
In an endlessly shifting world, Yayas wield technology like a Swiss Army knife.
Their phones act as navigators, reminders, and assistants, while Yayas remain firmly in the driver's seat.
As one Yaya reflected, utilizing technology this way benefits me more than it harms me.
And Yayas have even begun to expand this mindset to the use of AI. 63% now say that using AI makes it easier for them to understand complex topics that they wouldn't otherwise engage with.
Similarly, 59% say that using AI allows them to learn more in less time, freeing them to explore other topics.
Nearly 59% amplify their output by treating their phone as a second brain.
Yet despite this reliance, 63% still trust their judgment without the use of the internet.
In fact, 41% say that even if you can easily look something up, there is still a need to remember it.
Despite this fluency, Yayas often receive skepticism. Older generations just see screens, not skill.
What gets framed as addiction actually optimizes their potential.
However, both academia and tech struggle to provide tangible understanding.
And after finding expertise in academia and skills across tech, Yayas land on the planet of life.
On life, dirt collects under their fingernails.
Fueled by cheap coffee, they work never-ending shifts, juggle responsibilities, fall short, and try again.
They navigate difficult coworkers, confusing challenges, and unrelenting deadlines.
Here they realize the most important lessons don't come with a manual. They come with a mistake.
In fact, 46% say they've gained their most useful skills through life itself.
Despite growing up in a world of polished digital answers, YAYAs have realized that real-world competence, critical thinking, and decision-making only emerge through the friction of living.
And for this reason, 28% of YAYAs say that when learning something feels mentally demanding or exhausting, they push through and try to learn it.
Only the third most common option was asking AI to summarize, with 17% of YAYAs saying this, directly going against perceptions of them as overly reliant on AI and uninterested in learning for themselves.
Instead of defaulting to the internet's quick answers, YAYAs chase the gritty nuances and hidden details that only reveal themselves in the real world. Trial and error gives them permission to be messy, curious, and capable.
YAYAs feel drawn to this process of intentional learning, rather than the fast speed of the internet, with 50% preferring a greater depth of understanding over a quick speed of learning.
YAYAs also place a value on having a working knowledge across a variety of topics. 40% believe that having a baseline understanding of different topics is more important than expertise in one specific area.
Learning now shapes identity, not just utility. In fact, 3/4 say that learning outside of education or work helps them better understand who they are.
In this knowledge, YAYAs step beyond their anonymous professional identities and determine what makes them uniquely themselves.
47% say that hobbies have shaped them more than jobs or school.
For this reason, one YAYA said, "Your career can only do so much for you. Your hobbies and interests outside of your career should be your primary life."
However, even in these spaces, YAYAs still feel like they're obtaining knowledge. In fact, 57% say that they're always learning, even when they're doing things like relaxing or working out.
YAYAs collect this knowledge and use it as an essential guide. They view the two most important uses of knowledge as understanding the world and having the ability to think critically in order to make informed decisions.
YAYAs feel drawn to the experience of learning, rather than just simply having knowledge. Through this process, 68% of YAYAs say they feel empowered and liberated by the idea of obtaining knowledge.
Formal education grants legitimacy. Digital fluency sharpens discernment.
And this lived experience gives them the thread that allows them to turn their legitimacy and discernment into a mosaic of knowledge.
The learner's odyssey never ends, and few can remember when it began. It encompasses everything: their education, digital worlds, and day-to-day lives.
And in a world overflowing with answers, YAYAs have chosen questions, and with them, a lifetime of embarking on the learner's odyssey. Thank you for coming on the journey with us. We will now pass it off to Team Prisma to explore the question, what is authenticity?
Thank you, Team Parallax, for those insights. We are Team Prisma, here to change the channel.
Everyone wants authenticity, but these days it's tough to find. Ask any YAYA what they look for in brands and influencers, and they'll all have the same answer.
Authentic.
Authenticity is defined by Merriam-Webster as the quality of being authentic. Seems simple enough, right?
Our research found that over 1/3 of YAYA customers agreed they often discover aspects of their personality through online content. And almost 1/3 agreed that aesthetic trends help them express who they are.
YAYAs use trends to find those genuine connections we know they want so badly. Yet, as 70% still believe authenticity can create opportunities, YAYAs clearly want the truth.
So then why are YAYAs investing their time and wallets into aesthetics that don't feel true to themselves? 54% say they have purchased something to feel more aligned with a certain identity. Yet, only 3% say they have never made a purchase influenced by something they saw online.
Although YAYAs avoid falling for manufactured authenticity, brands and users' posts impact YAYAs' identities. One observed, "Would I have liked this if it hadn't been shown to me on my For You page?" The positive side is it makes you discover things you wouldn't have tried before.
So what's the disconnect?
Why do yayas feel so trapped? These days, you need an identity to fit in with the constantly evolving world around you, and you need to find it fast before you get left behind.
In desperate need of friends and community? Why be you when a better version of yourself is just a click away? Transform your life with the package deal. Why struggle with self-discovery when you can fit in just like everyone else with the help of our popular personas? For just the low price of your current identity, we'll ship conformity straight to your doorstep. Unbox each personality package and the unbelievable benefits that come absolutely free with your abandonment of self.
You see, back in the old days, our parents' generation had the benefit of disconnection in a world free of social media algorithms targeting their every insecurity. And yayas have noticed. One happy customer observed in the 90s, teenagers were bored and had to go seek things out. Nowadays, we're on social media all the time, trying to see what the next trend is.
Growing up in a digital environment of social media influence, amplified by the COVID pandemic, transformed how yayas are interacting with the world around them. They crave genuine connections, but often turn to social media for relief.
However, research shows attachment to online spaces rather than in-person connection only intensified Gen Z's dependence on social media and digital communication, deepening the very problem of social disconnection they were already facing.
And as social media continues to creep into every aspect of the Yaya experience, only 9% of Yayas, that's right, 9%, said that social media influencers and algorithms make it easier to form an authentic self.
Yayas start building their brands the second they make an Instagram account, but they worry about being put under a microscope by their peers online. 1 in 5 say the pressure to be authentic makes them feel anxious, and 3 out of 4 say that fear of judgment makes for a less authentic environment.
This online performativity affects Yaya's self-perceptions. As one said, social media derails authentic expression. You aren't figuring out what authenticity means to you.
Yaya's true identities aren't just discouraged, they're constantly molded by the influences around them. Forced into boxes of conformity, many Yayas lose sight of where the digital world ends and they begin.
1/3 of Yaya said that their identities would change if social media disappeared tomorrow. You heard that right, 1/3.
So why wrestle with introspection when you can fit in with everyone else with the help of one of our popularized personas? As Yayas stretch and style themselves to match the mainstream, they don't just fit in the box, they climb inside and tape themselves shut. And that's the package deal, the bargain you strike to keep community, all for the low price of your individuality. Feelings of being obsolete, overrated, and off-trend will disappear.
Introducing Mojo Ad TV's limited time personas. Grab your tote bags and physical media. You're listening to The Alternative Male. Included is Mojo Ad's Alternative Manual, a step-by-step guide and kit teaching you socially acceptable sophistication and how to master the art of looking effortlessly misunderstood.
Slick back your hair and tidy up your act. Next up we have The Clean Girl. This bundle includes Mojo Ad's ultimate guide to the clean girl, teaching you how to maximize minimalism. Our new and improved package refers you to all the 15-minute ab workouts and hot girl walks you'll ever need.
Last but certainly not least, invest your identities into the Corporate Climber, including the exclusive Corporate Climber onboarding handbook. No personality will allow you to deliver shareholder value while providing unparalleled ROI, liquidating your fears of loneliness.
So you might be thinking, what does authenticity actually mean for the Yaya demographic? We're glad you asked. To Yayas, it's a skill rather than an instinct.
Yaya consumers know that their peers are being authentic in terms of showing things we want to be seen. But there's a level of inauthenticness to social media in general. 37% of them believe that no one is truly authentic online. Yet 1/3 of Yayas are hesitant to post if it doesn't feel authentic enough.
Manufactured authenticity is just as valid as the truth. The pressure to portray a perfect life online is an expectation Yayas feel with every post they make. 63% of Yayas say that social media is more about performing than sharing. This conformity feels necessary, as 24% of Yayas say, having the right look helps me fit in better with my friends.
That's why you must act now. If you don't, someone else will, and they might just look exactly like you. Still not convinced? In a world without authenticity, 60% of Yayas agree that everyone looks the same, while 78% agree that individuality would be compromised.
This future looks bleak for Yayas, as 70% say human connection would be lost, and 2 out of 3 say original thinking would end.
One fearful Yaya customer commented, "There won't be new ideas or inventions if everybody just wants to fit the same mold." Another customer worried that we're heading in that direction already.
And in the spirit of the package deal, 71% of Yayas said that society would lose the ability to think outside the box.
Hate seeing others fake it till they make it, but feel like you need to fall in to fit in? Rolling your eyes over using AI, but know that it just makes life so much easier?
We know yayas feel discomfort surrounding themselves with fake people. The same goes for AI. But how on earth are we supposed to keep up? One customer says there's a fear of falling behind. Yayas are saying no to AI replacing their humanity, but yes to AI for certain day-to-day tasks. And it's just 1 in 10 yayas said that they prefer AI to enhance their appearance or surroundings when creating authentic social media content. It's clear there's a line for when these tools are acceptable.
But wait, there's more. This easy access doesn't go unnoticed. As one said, with AI, if you need advice or to tell someone about something, it's instant.
And when it comes to replacing real human needs, yayas aren't quite ready to hand things over to AI. Just 20% said they would take advice from an AI therapist, and only 14% would turn to an AI doctor, while a whopping 64% says, no thanks, none of the above.
Why? Because when their humanity's on the line, yayas still crave the human touch. But here's the twist. Switch the context to content, and suddenly the story changes. A huge 79% of yayas are totally on board with AI-generated images, and just over half, 53%, are ready to hit play on AI-created videos.
While yayas may not want AI running their lives, they're willing to let it shape what they consume. So what does this mean for their identities? 77% of them feel that the media they consume reflects who they are.
But some yayas are afraid of this major shift, with customers noting it's scary to think about moving away from authentic things, and if we reject authenticity, we'll be living in a dystopian world. This isn't an all-or-nothing offer. If you want to stand out from the crowd, you have to act smart and act now.
Now, you might be asking, how can brands cut through the noise? Well, look no further. The solution to your confusion is closer than you might think.
Half of yayas feel they can always tell when something online is authentic. So when it comes to influencer partnerships, they see right through the smoke. One customer made the observation that popular influencer Emma Chamberlain is trying to be authentic, but then is promoting a brand that goes against things she believes in.
Yayas don't want to see faceless corporations cashing in on what the algorithm is pushing, as only 5% prefer brands to keep up with trends, while 70% would rather follow brands that maintain their core values and voice. There's just no room for fakeness these days.
Our research also showed that 46% of respondents don't care at all about trends and they never affect how they feel, and only 8% of respondents said that they change how they present themselves depending on current trends.
But YAYA customers are still feeling the heat, with one responding, trends create these invisible biases of what do I need to do or wear or say to be in the it group.
1 in 5 yayas felt pressure to fit into popular aesthetic trends, and 30% felt it can be stressful trying to keep up with all the new style trends. But if you want to capitalize on trends while remaining true to those authentic values yayas love so much, not all hope is lost. 40% of yayas agree that authenticity is still possible in a trend-driven society, so brands don't have to stay on the sidelines.
We here at Mojo Ad TV know that trends move fast. So don't wait a second longer. These personas are flying off the shelves and may never be restocked ever again. So text or call 1-800-TRY-YAYA. That's right, 1-800-TRY-YAYA for your newest identity. And find comfort and conformity with the package deal today. But hurry, these fads will fade soon. Thank you so much for tuning in to our 2026 State of the YAYA report. We now pass the mic to you as we invite up teams Mirage and Parallax for questions.
Thank you to all the teams. That was amazing. All right, first question of the day. What are specific changes that organizations should make to better attract or retain new college grads?
From the American Dream standpoint, thinking in terms of a workplace environment, our research heavily preferred that hybrid or flexible work schedules are extremely fulfilling to yayas. We do kind of work to live as opposed to the opposite philosophy. And so when we do have that time to maybe go on a vacation, see a friend that we had in college in our workplace, that is really preferred. And so having hybrid schedules is really nice. We also have a preference for companies that maybe have like days where maybe you're not working and you're doing community service with your coworkers, and opportunities to give back to your community and to our communities. It makes us feel like we're making a difference beyond just like the corporate work that we do.
Yeah, and then looking at it from kind of a marketing perspective and a learner's odyssey perspective, we thought that agencies really leaning into experiential marketing was really effective, really leaning into the lived experiences and getting outside YAYA's phones and showing too that like brands' values align with YAYA's values, and experiential is a great way to do that.
In terms of authenticity, YAYAs are interviewing your brand and your company just as much as you're interviewing them. We talk about with authenticity that YAYAs don't want to surround themselves with fake people. They want community, and that involves in the workplace. So being your authentic self from the interview process to when they're hired to the entire time that you're working together is really the best thing you can do to keep YAYAs on board.
Thank you. Okay, next question. And if there's questions in the room, just raise your hand and we will get to you as well. Okay, question for the group. How do we break through digital noise to reach YAYAs? How are their search habits shifting?
As far as from a true knowledge perspective, their search habits are shifting in ways that they are constantly being bombarded by information. So from a brand perspective, if you're really able to be fully transparent, and I think this was covered in authenticity too, just being transparent in your use of AI or other marketing tactics and really playing into that curiosity of YAYAs is really what's going to be most effective.
I think also thinking about agencies and brands trying to connect with YAYAs outside of the digital landscape. We talked about it earlier. Experientials is something that's really like on the trend right now. For us, I think even last semester we saw Bath and Body Works do an experiential event in New York City. And that's a way that the brand is connecting to their audience in a way that isn't just through social media. And I think we look at that and we recognize, oh, they see that we're not necessarily treating that space the same. And so they're trying to meet us where we're at now.
With regards to what is authenticity, I think the coolest thing about your brand is what makes you different from all the others. So our advice would be to just know exactly who you are, really sit with your brand, understand your brand, and just make sure that everything you do is in accordance with that.
Thank you. Okay, question for Team Parallax, but I know each group touched on this to some degree. Did YAYAs using AI to shop for fun items or essentials come up in your research? If so, what did that look like?
Yeah, speaking for true knowledge, we didn't necessarily touch on that this semester for our survey, but we actually touched on it a little bit with our Bath and Body Works semester client, and we found that they're wanting personal experiences when they're shopping, and those AI suggestions don't necessarily feel like that. So they want experiential shopping, like we talked about, like Bath and Body Works did. So I can't speak definitively, but the data as of last semester was showing that they weren't necessarily leaning towards AI when shopping.
Okay. Another question for the group. As your time at Mizzou comes to a close, sob, your learning doesn't stop. It shifts into a new environment. What do you expect learning to look like for you in the workforce?
I can speak to this personally. I think that as far as learning goes, stepping into professional roles and possible internships is really going to be mentorship. And I think being able to learn from the people I surround myself with, my team, is really what's going to be most valuable to me and what's going to make me feel more confident going into an unfamiliar role.
I'd second that, and I'd really like to emphasize the mentorship portion. I think when people have a strong connection to somebody else in their workplace, someone they can rely on and trust, it kind of bleeds into authenticity in a sense, that they are far more inclined to be willing to learn and learn quicker. I feel like, at least online, I see that people are losing faith in the belief that they will be trained on the job, but I believe that personally, that's a very important factor in making sure that your employees are prepared. So making sure that there's some level of mentorship or at least close teamwork to make sure people can ask questions and seek the knowledge that they need.
Yes, and then last thing I'd add, just in this increasing digital world, I think as authenticity, we all kind of touched on it. It just feels like where it's more and more difficult every single day to connect with the people around us. And so I think that's something that really helps us feel like we're grounded and we're really making an impact is when I can see something in person and I'm actively affecting somebody in a positive way and vice versa with that mentorship role. And so, yeah, I think that helps us feel like we're, getting something out of our work experiences and then kind of tying back into our lives. That's just my personal opinion, but yeah.
Thank you. Next question. If you do not agree with a brand's values, how deterring is that if you genuinely need their services?
That's a tough question. I think it depends on the brand or service that's being provided. Obviously, if it's something that you can't go without, you're going to have to suck it up unless there's a better option. But I do think that as I mature and I age, I really am being more conscious about what brands I am supporting. So if there's something that's going against my beliefs or they're doing something that I don't necessarily agree with, I will do everything in my power to find an alternative. But obviously, if it's something that just can't be replaced, you just got to deal with it for the time being.
Yeah, I love what Kaylee said. I will also say that there is an explosion of brands right now. I feel like, especially within the past few years, we're seeing so many brands pop up for the same things. And to be quite frank, they really do all look the same. So yes, there are instances where sometimes you do have to suck it up, of course. But at this point in time, we have so many options. And if YAYAs don't agree with your brand values, they do have other opportunities to go somewhere else.
Thank you. As you start interviewing, what are the deal breakers for you in a job or workplace?
I think honestly a lot of us could say this, but for me it's lack of transparency. I think especially with compensation and how that ties to how much we give to our education and commit ourselves to learning. We want to see that reflected in the workforce, but also transparently. So I think, going through the process and not only understanding what you're getting yourself into, but the culture of the work and then of course the pay.
I think that also bleeds, especially early on, into the LinkedIn of it all. In our first LinkedIn social post, we referenced that AI parsing of resumes is something that really terrifies YAYAs in general. And I believe that just not, like Isaac said, not being transparent about what sort of AI you're using to parse resumes, or not being clear on benefits, hours, pay, anything like that is not very satisfactory. And then the one thing I would like to add is a lot of interviews. I feel like a lot of people have experienced 3 to 4 interviews for an entry-level role. And while I believe, of course, a company should interview as many times to feel secure in who they're hiring, at the same time, there's some level where it could be a sped up process. You're usually able to narrow it down before the final interview where a conclusion could be made earlier. Maybe at least being more transparent through that process and how many interviews they should be expecting, or being more clear in whether they intend to follow up and actually following up after they say they're going to follow up would be, it would be more of an impactful feeling.
When I was doing qualitative research for what is authenticity, this one participant was talking about the interview process he went through for a job, and he ended up turning the job down because they were asking such cookie cutter questions, and the lack of personality ultimately led to a lack of connection between the guy and the interviewer, and that's the loss for the job. So.
Two things that I always ask about in interviews are retention and office culture, which are pretty self-explanatory things. But if you see that there's a pretty frequent turnover of employees, that kind of raises a flag in my mind, because if everyone is coming in and then leaving, what makes me want to come in? So maybe before you're even bringing anyone on, taking a look internally and seeing how are people feeling, what about this environment would make someone want to work here, and really dig into that before you start looking at hiring processes.
In a somewhat related question, what do you think YAYA's biggest challenges are as they head into the workforce post-graduation?
I think we kind of all touched on it in our presentations. There's this stigma that we all feel older generations kind of view us as lazy or stupid or addicted to our phones. And I think all three of our presentations through our qualitative and quantitative research disprove that theory entirely. We are trying our hardest, but AI parsing of resumes and the connections that I should have been doing 10 years ago, it feels like, triumph over all hard work. So as we said, only 20% of us in this room, in the survey at least, believe that we actually can work harder and smarter and get what we truly want. And so I think really it's just this challenge of trying to not be digital, but if we aren't digital, then am I gonna get a job? And what opportunities can I actually afford? So I think that's the current sentiment, just feeling like we're this constant battle of who we wanna be in the digital space.
In another related question about the post-grad life, what are some ways a manager can support your success?
I think that depends on the tendencies of the employee. I do think there needs to be a outline of how you prefer to work, and if the employee is like, I guess, neglectful of their own needs, then to a degree it might be their fault. But I do think that there should be open communication in how they learn best, whether that's being supported, whether that's criticism, whether that's lifting them up constantly, pat on the back. It doesn't necessarily matter as long as you're fitting to their mold and making sure that they're remaining engaged. They just don't want to feel like they're kind of doing nothing or not being supported when they are doing something. So either support, criticism, feedback, etc. Just talk to them about it, and I'm sure they're willing to share.
I think the best thing a manager can do is get to know your employer as a person. Ask them about their lives, because what YAYAs really are craving is a genuine connection, and you won't do that if you don't get to know them as a person. So
I would second that, what Inez said, and also just emphasize again the importance of mentorship. And one time I was in an interview and I was asked, how do you like to receive feedback? And that was a really impactful question to me, and it really made me kind of think about how I did want to receive feedback. And I think that that is something that's very valuable to just be transparent about with managers.
Okay, last question of the morning. Was there anything you found in your research that surprised you or seemed in contrast to your own values?
Speaking for true knowledge, not necessarily in contrast of my own values, but something that was exciting and surprising for us to find out. So through our survey, we found out 59% of YAYAs use their phones as second brains, and that's something that we could have kind of hypothesized. We know that YAYAs use their phones as an extensions and as a search engine, and they can kind of store their information there. But what surprised us in the survey was a lack of reliance on their devices. We found that over half of YAYAs feel confident doing their daily tasks if they lost access to their phones. Over half would feel confident being able to stay calm and not anxious if they lost access to their phones. So although they're using their devices to optimize their potential, it doesn't mean that they're addicted to their phones, and being able to disprove that stereotype was really exciting for us. But
it doesn't really go with how I feel as well, kind of like what you said. But from what the Learner's Odyssey pointed to earlier, that people think Yayas have this reputation of being reliant on AI. However, Yayas are trusting AI more, and they're becoming a little bit more reflective to it, which goes towards the package deal in some type of way. They're trying to find this good balance between convenience with authenticity in AI. So our data was showing that 79% are open to AI-generated content, but there's that 64% who wouldn't use AI for any type of personal advice. So they're using AI for efficiency, but when it comes to human connection, that's where they're drawing the line.
And then speaking on behalf of the American Dream, I know our team was a little bit worried about the results. We were thinking that it was going to be depressing, but we found that Yayas are actually really strategic players. They know how to get ahead, and they use coping strategies like the let them theory to change their mindset. And there really is a non-zero chance that you can accomplish anything. So just try the best you can.
In terms of authenticity as well, I think we all really expected that authenticity is this innate instinct. It's something that you can just point out that that's authentic. It's something that you are automatically, but authenticity is hard. We talked about it in our presentation, but it is a skill rather than an instinct. We need to learn how to be authentic as Yayas, as people, as brands. We've grown up with so many influences, especially Yayas from the second we were born. We were born with DSs and leapfrogs and iPods in our hands, and that has not really changed at all. We've been bombarded with everything our whole entire lives. We're shaped by everything we've ever consumed. So we need to do a lot of work to get back to who we are authentically. The same goes for brands and really everyone.
Thank you to everyone who was online, everyone in the room. Thank you to the Mojo Ad staff for an amazing year and an amazing presentation. Let's give them another round of applause. For anyone who missed any part of the presentation, these will be on the Mojo Ad YouTube site within the next few days, and the books. The 3 wonderfully creative books are now available for download on the Mojo Ad website. That concludes today's presentation. Thank you all, and have a good day.
You did so good.